Good afternoon, guys. It's Wednesday afternoon around noon, and this morning I took the time to finish the tenons for the Treadle Lathe uprights, and this afternoon I'm gonna start working on the mortises of the feet that attach to the uprights of the lathe. It's 34 degrees and raining outside here in Tennessee, but it's awesome to have this nice warm shop. I've got the stove going, and I think this is the 6th day in a row I've had the stove running 24/7, and I'd say the temperature in here is 70 to 75 degrees. So anyhow, I was going to bring you along for the ride today, and we will start working on the mortises on the feet of the lathe frame. So I've got all three of the feet of the lathe lined up with the reference face towards me and the reference edge down towards the bench top, and that way I can lay out each one of the mortises all the same time. The actual reference edge will be towards the ground in the finished product, because that's the flattest portion of this stock, and I don't want the lathe to be rocking at all. So I can modify the edge here, which is opposite to the reference edge, to fit my tenons perfectly. The feet of the lathe are 24 inches in length, so I'm going to mark the halfway point on the feet and then go ahead and make that mark before, that way I have the tenon or the mortises and the tenons centered in the middle of the feet. So now I'm going to mark from the center line 3 5/8 on both sides of the center line. And then I can take my square and go ahead and mark out the actual width of each of the mortises at the same time. Even though these boards are very square, because I spent a lot of time milling them up, I'm still using the reference face to mark my measurements to keep everything perfectly square. So then the next thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and mark my center lines on each of the boards. This is just to try to get the mortise in as much of the center of the board as possible. If it's off a little bit, it won't make any difference in the final product. Now I know my tenons are 1.5 inches in thickness, so I'm going to go ahead and mark a line at, or put a dot at least at 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to use that to set my combination square, so I can go ahead and mark the outer edges of the mortise. Okay, I've got all 3 mortises marked on the edge of the board, and I've delineated where we will remove the material by the X. So the next step will be to take my chisel and go around the edges, and that will prevent any tear out when we start drilling out the holes. So the next step is we'll use our bit and brace to drill out as much of the waste as we can. I don't have an 1.5 inch auger bit, so I think what I'm going to do is use probably 2 3/4 inch bits. If you haven't used the old auger bits with a bit and brace, you should certainly try it. You can get the braces at antique stores and auctions for really cheap. And I think I bought this set of bits on eBay a few years ago, and I think it was maybe around $50. But these things cut beautifully. So we'll go ahead and start drilling these out. I'll just try to keep the bit lined up with the marks that I made with my chisel. That way we don't get outside the margins of the mortise. And we'll just start working our way through and trying to drill out as much of the waste as we can. So one thing that I forgot to mention is that our tenon length is 3 inches. So we only want to bore into our feet a little bit more than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure on my drill bit the depth that I want and then mark it with a piece of tape. That way as I'm drilling, I don't go too deep. I don't want to come out of the bottom of the feet. This just gives me a reference to go by as I'm drilling the holes. Okay, you can see there where I've drilled out multiple 3/4 inch holes, and I'm trying my best to stay within my marking lines. This mortise is just a slight bit narrower than the others, so if I get outside this this mortise, that'll be okay. All the mortises in these in this stock, or these in the feet of the lathe, will be blind mortises, meaning that the bottom does not show, so you won't see the bottom of the mortise, and the uprights that will fit into these tenons will cover up the edges of the mortise, so if I get off of the lines a little bit, it will never show. If you're interested, I'm actually using the Stanley number 2101A 10-inch brace, and I'm using the Irwin company auger bits. These are vintage tools. I believe the bits were actually new when I purchased them off eBay, and they actually came very sharp and came in this nice little box. It says made in Wilmington, Ohio, USA. Well, I think that's about all the time I have today to work in the shop. This is sort of a different type of video than I've done in the past. In the past, I usually wait till I sort of hit a milestone in a project and then produce a video about it. Today, I guess this would be more like a daily workshop video log, I suppose. Let me know in the comments if you like this type video. I didn't get, a ton done as far as making a video goes, but honestly, I got a whole tenon cut, and I also got the 3 mortises laid out, and well on my way to getting most of the waste out of the first mortise. It won't take long to chisel that out once we get it drilled out. The next time I'm here in the shop, I'll probably go ahead and drill out the rest of these, and then we'll chisel them out together. So anyhow, thanks again for watching. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, consider sharing with others who might like the project. This has been a little bit of a slow project, the treadle lathe we're building, but we're well on our way to getting the frame dry fit together soon. So anyhow, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.